Timothy in Edgewater, Maryland. It's Anything Goes Summer. What's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. Yeah, my question was actually for Senator Sanders, but it actually might be better if you answer it, probably. I have some conservative friends on Facebook and other people I'm trying to convince to support Bernie, and a lot of them have a hard time distinguishing what a socialist Democrat is. They seem to think that if you use the word socialist, you're talking about Joseph Stalin. So I was wondering how I can explain that to my friends.
Tell them that Germany calls itself a democratic socialist country. France calls itself a democratic socialist country. All of the Scandinavian countries call themselves democratic socialist countries. When he talks about democratic socialism, he's talking about basically, you could argue that it's the European model, but it really was the direction that Franklin Roosevelt was taking us, which is that healthcare is considered a right, education, including college, is considered a right, and a decent retirement is considered a right, and that in the context of working conditions, you have some protection from abuse by employers, and that if a person works a 40-hour week, whether they have a high school diploma, whether they're a dropout, or whether they got a PhD, if they work a 40-hour week, they never live in poverty. I mean, these are the basic tenets of it, of democratic socialism.
Yeah, totally understand. I want to, because a lot of the Republican candidates, or the clown bus, are use that as a negative, the European model.
Well, they always drop the word democratic too. They always say socialist, and socialism means a whole lot of different things. Karl Marx used that word rather liberally, but he was ultimately talking about communism. The USSR, and most of the people who you'll get blowback on the word socialist from are people of my generation, people who remember the Soviet Union, and it was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And but they weren't socialist; they were communist. And in communism, what Karl Marx proposed was that because the capitalists had so badly, and keep in mind, Karl Marx was writing back in the 1840s and 1850s and 1860s, or 1850s, 60s, and 70s, I guess it was.
Right.
That at that point in time, the big industrialists, because this was the early days. I mean, steam engines and whatnot were kicking off in the 1830s. So this was the early years of the Industrial Revolution, and basically workers had no rights, and industry was growing like crazy. And what Marx pointed out was that the abuses of workers at the hands of the employers, and the workers were desperate. I mean, they needed money, and they other than being a farmer where you have a relative degree of autonomy. Once you leave the farm, if you can't get a job, you're screwed. And so Marx's solution, which is communism, not socialism, was for the government to take away from those capitalists those businesses and run them on, by the people, on behalf of the people. Now, it sounds nice in theory, and, a lot of people thought it was a great idea. And over the next 70 years, the Russian Revolution happened, and they actually put it into place in the Soviet Union. They banned, private enterprise, basically. And it didn't work. It works with a small community like a kibbutz. It's been working in Israel for 60 years, but it doesn't work at the level of a nation state. But that's not socialism. That's communism. So, right. Bernie never in his wildest dreams, to the best of my knowledge, has ever advocated that the state should take over the manufacture of anything, or at least anything that's not part of the commons. I mean, but when you look at the things that we own in common, whether it's our national parks, which the Republicans and the Koch brothers now want to privatize, or whether it's our public schools, which they've been successfully privatizing all over the country over the last 3 decades, whether it's our water supply, our electric supply, these are all natural monopolies. All of these things really should be in the hands of we the people rather than the hands of somebody whose first goal is to make a buck off us.
Right. I absolutely hear you. Now, if I could just turn that into a 5-word meme that people would listen to.
Well, here's the 5-word meme, I guess. Democratic socialism means protecting the rights of workers and making sure that there's more than 5 words, and making sure that people have access to health care and education throughout their lives to whatever extent they need it and can succeed with it. You know, need it with regard to health care and can succeed with regard to education. I mean, it's really a progressive agenda. And
right, it does. It sounds. I was thinking maybe the other way would just be to just do FDR's four freedoms and kind of go, okay.
Well, the better than his four freedoms would be his proposed amendments to the Constitution. I'm forgetting what he called that. But
I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, this was just a few months before he died. He proposed, four amendments to the Constitution that everyone would have the right to a job, that everyone would have so in other words, the government could be the employer of last resort if capitalism fails, that everyone has a right to religious liberty and freedom from religion as well, that everyone has a right to an education, and I'm forgetting what the fourth one is, but Harvey K. has written about this.
Education and the freedom from fear, I suppose.
Yeah, freedom. Well, that's the four freedoms. This was a different suggestion. I'm sorry, it's not right at the top of my head.
No, I'll look it up. And one day, Tom, when you have time, I'd love for you to spend some time about his Vice President Wallace and how the world would have been so different if he had been nominated to be the vice president when FDR died.
Yeah, he called it the Second Bill of Rights.
Okay. The Second Bill of Rights.
Yeah, education was one piece of it. Yeah, check it out. I'll have to look it up to read it to you. I should. This is one of those things I should have memorized a long time ago, Timothy. I'm sorry I haven't. Thanks a lot for the call. Great to hear from you.